Myron Games from the Fresh and Fit podcast is receiving backlash for his recent comments in regards to the late Kevin Samuels. I want to give you guys my perspective. Kevin is not here right now to speak out for or defend himself. So I'm going to give my perspective of the reality of the conversation because history will not be revised on my watch.
The last 2 to 3 days have been insane, especially since Myron called out Kevin Samuels for a huge lie. And that lie was this: the Black Manosphere failed because Kevin Samuels didn't bring enough people into the game.
And I really dislike to even say this, but the truth is the truth, and I kind of had to say it. The reason why the Black Manosphere died, right, is simply because Kevin Samuels didn't put his people on. Just going to be honest about it. He became famous. He blew up. He didn't, extend the ladder back and put his guys on, and it died. That's just what happened. Once he got into, into the mainstream, he didn't bring anybody up with him. And that's the cold hard truth. I hate to say that, but it's the truth.
Stop the cap.
Now, an ally and friend of Kevin Samuels, MTR, decided to call BS on that argument. He took a different path than I did in my initial video because he's going to point out something that is very important.
And
I'm going to let him speak, but understand the context of the conversation. This is not, they were friends and they were collaborators and they were planning on doing good work in the future. They were ops. Kevin did not bang with the Fresh and Fit platform, and Fresh and Fit did not bang with Kevin. Now, to get into the history of why that happened, we don't have time here within the scope of this conversation, within the content, because I want to address his specific points about it all falling and crumbling because Kevin did nothing to bring others up with him, which is categorically incorrect. But it's not coming from a perspective of friendship. They were ops. They were not cool. And in fact, Kevin was creating studios down in Miami to directly compete with Fresh and Fit.
You see, Myron is speaking about Kevin Samuels in a very oh, by the way, he's cool, but here's my criticism. No, Myron hated Kevin Samuels and Kevin Samuels hated Myron. And even though MTR didn't have time to explain why the beef started, that's okay. I got time today. Story time music! So Myron is a snake. There were certain creators that Myron was talking about behind their back. And I'm gonna name some, even though they don't have anything to do with it. Kevin Samuels was one, Alvin Preach is another, and another person that was being insulted for not coming on to Fresh and Fit was indeed Steffes Cole. So Myron was going around talking shit about all of these content creators behind their back. Then word got out. And how word got out was because the photographer working with Fresh and Fit was named Larjay. And not only Larjay, but Allende, who runs a YouTube channel now called Authentic Alphas. And so they were the ones, once Kevin came and things were falling apart, they actually told not only Kevin, but Abba and Preach that Myron was insulting them behind their backs. And I'm gonna tell you how I know it's true. Because when all it popped off, I called Myron. At the time, Myron had a Connecticut number. I don't forgot the number and what it was. But I asked Myron, is it true that you called Kevin Samuels a homosexual? He goes, yeah, it's true. I said it because he was competing with me for a time slot. So it's true. So these guys, Fresh and Fit, have been calling a lot of dudes names behind their back if they didn't want to come on their show and stuff like that, or even after they come on their show. So imagine Abba and Preach. These guys come to Miami. I believe Preach stayed in Canada. Abba came to Miami. Kevin came all the way from Atlanta to Miami. And then behind the scenes, you're calling them the F-bomb. Well, of course, that's going to get back. And that's what made Abba and Preach pick a fight with Fresh and Fit when Fresh and Fit were sitting there like, I don't even know why these guys are even beefing with us, man. Like, we just invited you to our house. No, you didn't invite them to your house. You didn't give them hospitality. You talked behind their back like straight up 304s. Now, let's get to another part of putting people on, right? And check out Mediocre Stories and Reviews' whole video. He'll give certain instances of basically him putting him on. He didn't mention me in the video, but he helped me. But he's gonna bring out something about the situation when Kevin Samuels died and who had an opportunities, and what did those content creators do with it?
So no, Myron, there were content creators that he selected to bring forward. It just wasn't you. But there were those that he did associate with within his past that just weren't ready, or they did not have the appropriate professional image to carry the torch forward. That may be hard for you to understand, but apparently after looking at the history of what's happened over the past 2.5 years since he's passed, Kevin was absolutely correct. The people that were seen as the leaders of this movement have appropriately squandered whatever listening ears that we would have had in order to really impact change. And I'm not trying to say that I've been done the best at it myself, but I guarantee you, if Kevin was still alive, his channel would still be monetized. It's still monetized right now. And it's because the way that he did it with that degree of professionalism.
You see, he mentioned something. If Kevin Samuels was still living, he'd be monetized. Hell, Kevin Samuels has passed away and he's still monetized. But do you want to know who's not monetized? Let's play a game of Negro Air, shall we? Is it A, Myron? Is it B, Fresh and Fit? Is it C, Fresh CEO? Or is it D, all of the above? The answer is D, all of the above. You see, the reality is Fresh and Fit are demonetized on what? Facebook? Instagram, they got deplatformed? YouTube? Hell, you even got kicked off X. Meaning that if you're a person that has volatile content like talking about the Jews and insulting the Jews, you can't work with somebody like a Myron. And how do we know this? Well, let's listen to what Myron said himself.
I was walking into CVS after doing a stream one time. I was going to get some Coke Zero or some and I get a phone call, and it's Kevin. He's calling me at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And anytime he calls me that late like that, I know it's serious. And this is right after we had wrapped up an after-hours show. And he calls me and says, hey. He's like, I was like, hey, what's up, Kev? He's like, hey, yeah, you need to take down that video. What? What do you mean? What happened? Yeah, you talked about Jews on there. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, there's a group of, that's the one group of people you don't talk about on YouTube ever. Do you know who runs YouTube?
Kevin Samuels told him, hey man, stop talking about the Jews. In other words, listen, man, I probably would work with you guys if you guys stop messing around, but because you have hate speech against these protected groups, I can't work with you. I can't deal with you. Yeah, because he wants to keep his platform. Because you guys started dealing with Nick Fuentes, and what happened to you? You got banned. Even Fresh CEO was complaining about the fact that you brought them on. All right. Even your own guy doesn't like the fact that you won't tone it down so you guys can keep your money in your business. So nobody wants to be working with people like you guys when you guys are always getting deplatformed. Now, let's go with the Donovan Sharp piece.
The one thing on the Kevin Samuels legacy that I wish he did was put on his people. And he simply didn't. He simply did it. It's just the truth, and it sucks. Maybe he didn't have enough time. Maybe that was the plan before he passed away. I know that he had something going on, but what I will say is when he did those Nicki Minaj collabs, when he did those big events, there was no shout out to anybody from the sphere. And it kills me because like a guy like Donovan Sharp platformed him like 80 times.
All right, so Donovan brought him on 80 times, and then he never brought Donovan on. Well, let's say MTR has a solution for that.
And he brought up another content creator by the name of Donovan Sharp, and you may not be familiar with him. But Kevin's not alive again to speak for himself, but let me try to think through this. Kevin's brand was mostly popularized within Black media, where Kevin would ride for fixing things that were wrong within the Black community while also giving strength and power to men. But Kevin was for relationships. He was for marriages. He was for bringing people together. Now imagine if he shouted out Donovan and then they go over to Donovan's platform and they hear Donovan saying things such as black is this, black is that.
He's right, you know.
Yeah, Donovan is pretty hard on Black women. Let's check out an example of this. Now you see there, while Donovan is talking about Black women, he has his white wife, which is next to him. Not a big deal, right? Well, there is a problem.
It appears that a lot of black men who do well financially, they tend to gravitate towards non-black women. But the reason why black women are complaining about the black men who date non-black women is because it's that top 6%. And the reasons are obvious, because the average black woman as a collective, they're uncooperative, they're masculine. Even beautiful black women are masculine. And dude, we ain't trying to put up with that.
You see, that lady is a single mom. And Donovan was telling guys, on one hand, don't deal with single moms, but at the same time, dating single moms. And I can tell you that Donovan Sharp is one of the most horrific, low down, dirty people that you can ever deal with. He's a scammer. He scammed me. So yeah, sorry, bruh. Like, nobody wants to work with a person that's a scammer unless you're a scammer like Fresh and Fit. That's the reality of it all. You see, the reality is that Kevin Samuels tried to help out a lot of dudes, and it was his plan to help out a whole bunch of content creators. Before Kevin passed, he wanted me to work very much so with Dennis Sperlin. And if you guys noticed, when Kevin passed, I was trying to help Dennis become the next guy. Dennis didn't ever ask me to do that, but Kevin wanted it that way. And I was trying to do that. I like Dennis Sperlin a whole lot. He wanted Dennis to blow up. It's the truth. So he couldn't get anything from Dennis. Dennis was a smaller creator at that time, but he wanted Dennis to blow up. So what did he do? He said, listen, O'Shea, I want you to work with Dennis. So how is that not putting people on? But again, these guys who hate Kevin are always talking this trash and jealous because Kevin got so much respect. And what Myron really wants to be like is like F Kevin, but he's afraid to say that because he knows how much backlash he would get with it. He really wants to say F Kevin Samuels. But guys, what do you think? It's your boy, Shady Jackson, back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. Appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe to the bell. We're out.